Time is arguably the most precious commodity we have as human beings. However, sometimes you probably feel like 24 hours is simply just not enough, especially if you're the entrepreneur. From sales calls, meetings, and returning emails, life can get very frustrating real fast. Maybe we can't expand the 24-hour clock or travel back in time because we haven't figured out that science yet. But I think with a little planning and a change in perspective, we can at least get you your sanity back. My name is Dominic Lawson, and this is The Startup Life. Let's begin.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey Startup Nation, do you enjoy the startup life? Now you can let the world know with gear from the show. Choose from the label yourself, make your own luck, and making money t-shirts to tell your story of your path of entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to purchase. All right, Startup Nation, so I hope you're ready to receive some value today. Today, we're going to talk about reclaiming your time. Look, this life of entrepreneurship is one of those things where you have a whole lot of tasks and a whole lot of goals you're trying to meet, and they can really eat up time. So we're going to talk about some ways to kind of get some of that time back, if you will. So in the first segment, we'll talk about the benefits of time management. Look, you think a day planner or a calendar is just one of those things where it's just there to be there, but I can guarantee you they're extremely helpful. We'll talk about that. In the next segment, we'll talk about one of the things that entrepreneurs sacrifice most, which is sleep. And I'm going to tell you in that segment that that's not a good look, Startup Nation. After the break, we'll talk about some of the things that you can do to save some more time. You don't want to miss that one. And lastly, Startup Nation, you know how you have some of those people who ask a billion questions, but they never buy the product or close the service, and that meeting or whatever just kind of drag on? We're going to talk about some ways to kind of circumvent that process. And Startup Nation, before I go on with today's episode, I just want to apologize. I'm so sorry. I've been missing you. I know you've been missing me. And more importantly, you've been missing some great and valuable content. It's just that the company has been growing. Oh my goodness. The company Owls has been growing, and we've just been really busy. But I don't want you to think that I forgot about you. I can never forget about you, Startup Nation. So forgive me, for not having some episodes on a timely manner, and we're going to try to do better about that. But just know that I didn't forget about you. Okay, so Startup Nation, I hope you're ready to receive great value today, and let's take flight. Startup Nation, on this life and this path of entrepreneurship, one of the last things you want is more stress. Look, starting a business and starting a company or pursuing a dream, whatever the case may be, is stressful enough. And so one of the benefits to time management is that it allows you to have less stress, lowers those cortisol levels. It allows you to focus more on the task than why you have to do the task or the task itself. A lot of times, especially for me and probably you, Startup Nation, that you have things on your calendar, and so you're mentally thinking about those things on your calendar, even though you're not physically preparing for them. And a lot of times people who aren't entrepreneurs don't understand that, but you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So one of the benefits to having that calendar is to put things on your calendar, put things in your day planner, allows you to have less stress in your life. Because the thing is that what you should do is that once you have it on the calendar, just take it day by day. But look, I get it. It's down the pipeline and you're worried about it, this, that, and the other. But you can only do so much in a day. So take it day by day, and you'll get to that part when you get to it. Okay. And we know you'll do the best you can. So just remember that time management is really important to having less stress. Also, when you manage your time wisely, you get more done. You really do. When you plan out your calendar, you plan out your day, you plan out your week, your month, your year, or whatever the case may be, you actually do get more done, because it's one of those things where when you don't put it in a calendar, you don't put it in a day planner, all the things that you have to do, like it's in your head, you have to do it, but for starters, you can forget about them because life gets busy, especially as an entrepreneur. But also, it's one of those things where everybody loves benchmarks and everybody likes to see, all their tasks in a certain place, because it allows you to know, like, on this date I have to have this done, on this date I have to get this done. And so once you know that you have to have this done by 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, and have a general idea of how much time that you have to have that done, that allows you to understand that you have this block of time to do other things and this block of time to do those other things on the other side of the thing you have to do. And so when you have that planner or that calendar in place, you actually do allow yourself to get actually more work done. I know it takes a lot of planning on the front end, but believe it or not, you do your work on the front end, it frees up time on the back end. I know it sounds cliche. I know it sounds corny, but that is the honest to God truth. It really does work that way. Another thing, Startup Nation, is that when you have that time management piece in place, it allows you to do less rework. You'll be more organized. You'll cut down on mistakes, because a lot of times, when you don't have it in a calendar, and you're rushing to do certain things, you make mistakes. And it's one of those things where you want to get it done right the first time, because that's saving you time on the back end. Okay. So make sure we have a calendar, make sure we have a planner, make sure we cut down on those mistakes, right? Because the thing is, when you're rushing, right, you have like certain details are missed, certain items or instructions are not followed, and they allow for extra work. And when you're an entrepreneur and you got other clients in and out the door, that's the last thing you want to have is extra work. That's more work for you. That's less time in trying to service another customer. And more importantly, that's more stress on you. And you don't want to really have that, Startup Nation. And that leads me to my next point. Another thing that allows you to do when you don't have less rework and you have those time management pieces in place, it allows for more free time and wasted time. Okay. Look, that could be those times you're going and refilling an order or redoing some of those mistakes. That's time you could actually either be working on another customer or taking a 5-minute breather. Okay. Every once in a while, Startup Nation, you got to unplug from the business. Okay. You just have to. And so when you have that time management piece in place, you can allow for those small pockets. I know they're small. I get it. You can allow for those small pockets of just free time to just breathe, or to take a bite, or to take a quick stroll outside to kind of just clear your mind, or wherever the case may be, right? So that's another thing you want to be mindful of. Also, Startup Nation, when you have that time management piece in place, and one of the benefits is you have more opportunities. So let's say you got that, you got your planner in place, you got that client taken care of, you met that 2:00 Tuesday deadline. Now you can spend that time that you're not wasting, or that you're not, or that just the free time that you have. You can now go use that time for more opportunities. Maybe we can go do some sales calls. Maybe we go knock on a few doors. Maybe we go do some canvassing, if you will. So now this allows you the time to go and do that. It allows them more opportunities, more scalability for the company. And also, Startup Nation, when you have that time management piece, it actually enhances your reputation. Look, I know a lot of my colleagues that I work with in nonprofits and other businesses, they ask me to come speak at this event, do this event, or wherever the case may be, right? And I understand that, a lot of times I ask them a whole bunch of questions on the front end, right? And the reason I ask them a whole bunch of questions is because I want it to be good. If they're asking me to do something, I want it to be good. And my reputation has preceded me, and they know it's going to be good. And so I ask those questions like, how many people are going to be there? Is there going to be technology? What's the age range? What's the demographic, or wherever the case may be, right? So the reason they're asking me to speak at their event or to moderate a panel or wherever the case may be is because I've had this reputation of making sure that I do everything right. And so I go into a lot of planning, a lot of researching, or wherever the case may be, not just researching, whatever the topic may be, but if it's like a panel discussion, I research the people that's on the panel because I want to set them up for success, to make them look good and not just make myself look good. And so when you have that time management piece in place, people know that. People can tell, like, okay, if I call Dominic and if I call Kenda, I know it's going to be good. If I call them, I know, there's going to be value involved. I know people are going to get something out of it. And I know that it's going to be done right. And so when you have that in place, that reputation not only precedes you, but also boosts your your reputation as well, and it allows for more opportunities down the line. There could be somebody in that audience who's from a Fortune 500 company who may want you to speak at another time. There may be somebody in that audience who wants to do business with you because you kind of explain a little bit about what you do. And so they saw how you ran that, that speaking engagement or that panel discussion or wherever the case may be, or if you're in the food service industry and they saw how everything was laid out or wherever the case may be. When you have that piece in place, people see that. And it's like, you know what? If they're running this small function with ease and credibility or whatever the case may be, this must be something that they do in other facets of their business, of their life, wherever the case may be. And when they need something, Startup Nation, who do you think they're going to call? They're not going to call the person who's all over the place and flailing. No. They're going to call you. And so that's all one of those things where I know time management seems like a very small piece to the entrepreneur from time to time, but it really can open a lot of doors as well because it really can boost your reputation. And lastly, Startup Nation, before we move on, it allows you to do less effort. Look, it's one of those things where, look, I like basketball. Okay. And so when I was younger, I can, run fast, get past people on the dribble, where the case may be. But as I've gotten older, Startup Nation, I got to do my old man game. And so, but what that allows me to do is to have less effort to do what I need to do. And that's what happens when you have that time management piece in place, Startup Nation, in your business. It allows you to do some of the same things that you've been doing over and over again, to do it with less effort because you already know not only how it's supposed to go, but what the desired outcome will be 99% of the time. And so, when you use your, as I say, old man game, it allows for more comfortability, more ease to do the job at hand. Because the thing is, one of the most popular misconceptions about, time management is that it takes extra effort to have a time management piece. And that's simply not true. It's one of those things where it's like riding a bike. The more and more you do it, the more and more, comfortable you get with it. Like when you're riding a bike and you're wobbling and this, that, and the other, you fall off a few times and then maybe you don't fall off, but you're still wobbling. And then you get the hang of it. And then all of a sudden you popping wheelies and jumping over, shopping carts. I'm talking about the shopping carts because I know that from experience, but that's neither here nor there, Startup Nation. But anyway, you do things with less effort when you have the time management piece in place. So remember that, entrepreneurs, remember that, Startup Nation. Time management is essential to the entrepreneur. And so when you think about having, doing things with less effort, that causes less stress, which leads to more opportunities and leads to a higher reputation, which ultimately can lead to more doors. And it's all a simple thing of having great time management in your company and in your business and your life as an entrepreneur. Startup Nation, one of the things that unfortunately many entrepreneurs try to skip on or not value as much is sleep. And the reason I think that is because when we hear about your successful entrepreneurs like, your Jack Dorseys or your Elon Musk, where they get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and like run 500 miles on a treadmill, and then they get to their office at like 8 o'clock or whatever. And a lot of people feel like, in order to be successful, that's what you have to do. And I get it. Right? For starters, let me just say this. Exercise is very important to the entrepreneur because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of the company, you can't take care of the people and the assets in the company. So let me just be clear about that. Exercise is extremely important. However, what I believe is that if you exercise at 4 a.m. or at 4 p.m., I think the desired result is the same. Now, granted, you want to, a lot of people say exercise in the morning to get that early win, but which is fine. But like, if you're not a early morning exercise person, don't force yourself to be that person. Like, work within your realm of of your level of comfortability. Because the thing is, Startup Nation, you have 24 hours and it's up to you to use those 24 hours however you see fit. So I think a lot of times people are, shy away from, if you're an entrepreneur, like, why are you sleeping? I don't know what sleep is. I'll sleep when I'm dead or whatever the case may be. It's because, I think people have this misconception about business and, not going to sleep, because you have entrepreneurs out there like team no sleep, team no days off, team, I'll sleep when I'm dead or whatever the case may be. Startup Nation, Sleep is important. Sleep is extremely important, and I'm going to tell you why now. Don't let people feel you in your head talking about sleep isn't that important, when it really is. Startup Nation, one of the top reasons why you should get sleep and that you should not listen to those no days off team sleep people is because when you recharge your batteries and you go to sleep, it enhances your learning and memory. And so when you're an entrepreneur and you have so many things to juggle, right? Sleep comes in handy to recharging and recharging those brain cells. And so the learning piece is so important because when you're an entrepreneur, you're always in a continuous state of learning. Professional development is everything. We say to people and young people we mentor all the time that learning is an activity that never stops. And so when you sleep, it helps the brain commit to new information, to memory. Okay, so if you've read that book, to help you with sales or whatever the case may be, but you don't really take the time to go to sleep, believe it or not, some of the things you read in that book, you're going to lose because that sleep deprivation is going to add up. And, I'm sorry, but it could be the critical thing that you forget that could have closed the biggest deal in your company. And you may have to wait for that opportunity to come back around, all because you didn't get the proper sleep. So that's the first thing you need to know as to why getting sleep is so important. That learning, that continuous activity, needs to recharge every once in a while in your brain. And so, look, plain and simple, you just got to go to sleep. You got to get some rest. I'm sorry. Another thing, Startup Nation, is that I said it earlier and I said it in previous episodes, is that if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of the company. And so another one of those benefits to sleep is the fact that, it helps with weight and metabolism. When you eat and then you go to sleep, while you're sleeping, you're not only recharging your brain, you're kind of restarting your digestive system for the next day because your body is asleep and it's breaking down some of the stuff that you ate over the day, right? So if you ever notice, you'll eat throughout the day and you weigh yourself and you get those full 8 to 10 hours of sleep and you go and weigh yourself, after you use the restroom, of course, you go and weigh yourself, when you wake up in the morning, you'll see that some of the maybe 1 or 2 pounds will go away, right? Now, granted, that doesn't mean you have actually had a net weight loss. But what I am saying is that it's a proof that that sleeping breaks down the things that you ate over the past day, over the past 24 hours, if you will, right? And so when you have that sleep deprivation part in there, it can lead to chronic weight gain, right? Because the thing is, you're an entrepreneur and you're eating on the go, and some of the stuff you're eating probably isn't the best thing for you, right? And so when eating those things you probably shouldn't be eating on a regular basis and you don't get that proper sleep, you're just compounding the problem. And so remember, Startup Nation, you got to get that sleep. You got to get that sleep. You got to, take a rest, recharge. I take mid-morning naps. My wife takes mid-morning naps whenever we get the chance to, because sleep is super important. We maximize our 24 hours. Now, granted, we may, go to sleep at 11, wake up at 5, do some work, go to sleep at 10 or 11 o'clock, wake back up at 1 or 2, go pick Zoe up from from school. She, not work, but we go pick Zoe up from school and then tackle it, for the rest of the day until maybe, 9, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. Like I said, it's all about the 24 hours. You don't have to get up and have that, run 300 miles on a treadmill every morning, because not everybody's geared to do that. But as long as you get that exercise and you get that sleep in there, that's all that really matters. Okay. Now, granted, you want to have some type of schedule, if you will, but just make sure that the schedule works with you and your lifestyle. Okay. Because some of you have kids, and how some people and their kids, they get on your nerves. Okay. And so sometimes you won't be able to do it that much. Right. So get it in where you can. Okay. Startup Nation. But once again, to go back to the original point, sleep is super important to, managing weight gain and your metabolism as well. Also, Startup Nation, safety is an issue when you don't get enough sleep. For those of you who have a big warehouse, or if you're an Uber driver, shout out to my Uber and Lyft drivers out there. and that's something as your path to entrepreneurship partakes in, then you really got to get sleep, because the thing is, you're not only putting yourself in danger, you're putting other people in danger. I mean, think about how many times you've been on YouTube or Facebook and you've seen them videos of those people in those warehouses that tear down the entire racks or shelves of product, right? You're talking about like hundreds and thousands of dollars of beer or gummy worms or wherever the case may be that they're keeping up there, right? I bet you some of those people didn't get enough sleep. And so when you're the head of a company and you're running your own business or whatever the case may be, and you don't get that sleep, depending on what you do, you could quite possibly be putting people in danger. Sleep debt is a real issue. And just because you get 6 hours one day and 6 hours another day, and they tell you to get 8 hours a day, you've now ran. If you're supposed to get 8 hours a day, you have a sleep debt of what? 4 hours. And so like any other debt, you got to pay that back. So remember that safety is also an issue when you don't get enough sleep. Another thing, Startup Nation, when you talk about sleep deprivation, is mood. Okay, one of the biggest things that I see when I go to companies and try to help them with their companies, whatever the case may be, is customer service. And a lot of times the customer service is an issue because of mood. It could be quite possible that the mood is attributed to irritability, right? And that impatience and that inability to concentrate, right? So when you get, have a sleep debt, or you get a bad night, worth of sleep, that can contribute to a terrible mood, which can contribute to, and it trickles down to your employees if you have them, and ultimately trickles down to the customers. And the thing is, with a lot of customers, you got one shot. You got one shot, Startup Nation, to make a really good impression. If you didn't get enough sleep that, the night before, or if you're running a sleep debt over the past couple of weeks, that customer is going to see it. That customer is going to feel it. And you're going to get a real bad Yelp review all because you didn't get sleep. And that's a problem. Another thing, Startup Nation, is, and this is my last point before we go to break. Another thing is your cardiovascular health. And I know I'm talking about sleep, but it's because it's really important. And you may be wondering how is it important to reclaiming your time? Well, the thing is, I mentioned a lot of things like learning and memory, metabolism, this, that, and the other. But it also attributes to cardiovascular health as well. As a person who is a disabled veteran who, due to a heart issue, this hits home for me. So I have to get a lot of sleep myself. And so when we talk about reclaiming your time, it may not be necessarily reclaiming your time in the present. It could be reclaiming your time on the back end. Because if you run years and years of a sleep debt, you're shaving off years and years of your actual life. And that's a problem. Okay. So when people have serious sleep disorders, it's been linked to hypertension and increased stress and, an irregular heartbeat. Okay. That's a problem, because once again, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of the company. You can't take care of the company. You're not taking care of the people that work for you in the company, and they can't take care of the people in their family. So I know things like sleep seems like a small thing and it only affects you, but that's not entirely true. Look, being an entrepreneur is stressful enough. Do not add to that stress without, not getting proper sleep, because it's now, like I said, it's not only affecting you, it's not only affecting the people in your company, it's also affecting your family as well, because you're already stressed out because invoices aren't paid and, Sally Sue isn't coming to work on time on a consistent basis. And so you're stressed out about that already. And now you add sleep deprivation and a sleep debt to it. And now, you're starting to take it out on your kids and on your spouse, whatever the case may be. And that's a no-no, Startup Nation. So one of the most important things to reclaiming your time is to get that sleep and get that sleep debt, situation resolved. So, all right, Startup Nation, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. I hope you're getting great value from reclaiming your time. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson, and you're listening to The Startup Life. If you are a teacher looking for great resources, look no further than our Teaching with Al section of our website. Enjoy great lessons such as our mini lesson for the story of an hour, or dive into the Nixon presidency as part of our legacy series. Enjoy great peace of mind from our units as they are Common Core aligned. Click the link in the show notes to purchase. All right, Startup Nation, so let's continue. So in the first segment, just to recap, we talked about the benefits of time management and why they're so important. And then we talked about in the second segment why that whole team no sleep notion is ridiculous. Get you some sleep, Startup Nation. So we talked about the benefits of getting some sleep and what could happen adversely when it comes to sleep debt and sleep deprivation. And so next I want to talk about is, ways to save more time. You're always looking for that extra 30 minutes, that extra hour, if you will. So I'm going to try to see if I can help you out with that. The first thing you want to consider is to do strategic planning. Think ahead of the game, or backwards planning, if you will. The thing is, look, I get it. It may be less work not to do strategic planning, but future you would thank present you. I guarantee you, because the thing is, when you plan from behind or do backwards planning, if you will, you think about the desired outcome. You think about the potential pitfalls. You think about what at its optimum level, what the ultimate goal is supposed to look like. And so when you do that strategic planning and you try to account for all the variables that may go around your goal or your plan, it really can benefit you long term. And feel free to bring in what I like to call a red team. There's like somebody try to poke holes in that strategic plan to make it even more cemented and even more thorough as you go about your day. Also, monitor your time. When you have a task or something, make sure you set a clock, set a deadline, man. Get that clock running on your phone to say, it should have, you should have 1 hour to do this task. You should have an hour and a half to do that time. And it really does keep you on the ball. Now, if you're one of those people that suffer from anxiety or something like that, do not do this, okay? Because I understand that how it can get you nervous and your stress levels go up. Don't do that. But for some of you who don't really have an issue with anxiety, monitor your time, and that's okay. Tom Peters says, who's a business guru, what gets measured gets done. And that is so true. If you understand how long it takes you to do something and you understand the metrics of all, it will get done. Plain and simple. So remember that, Startup Nation. Also, Startup Nation, prioritize your day. Understand what's important, what's not as important, and what's less important. And some of the things unfortunately, what can we maybe pawn off for the next day? Think about your time-sensitive goals, right? So, for example, if you have that 3 o'clock deadline or whatever the case may be, that's a time-sensitive goal. But if overall you need to do some work to reorganize your desktop because you have a messy desktop like yours truly, then that's something that's not necessarily time-sensitive, and that's okay. Just be mindful that, look, you got to organize that desktop eventually, but it's not necessarily something you have to do today. However, that sales call with that new potential client with a government contract, that's time sensitive. So you may want to put most of your resources into that and make sure you get that done right, Startup Nation. Also, time your phone calls. And we're going to get into this a little bit more, so I don't want to delve into it. A lot of times, look, some people will get on your nerves. They want to, they talk business and then they start talking about other stuff, which is fine. If you want to talk about some of the other stuff, that's cool. Because the thing is, some of the other stuff like bowling or kids or family or vacations or whatever the case may be, that's fine. Because what you're doing is you're further building rapport with the person on the other end of the phone. And that's okay. But you don't want to do it too much, Startup Nation, because after a while, you're dragging. You got other stuff to do, and they're just wasting your time. And so be mindful of that. Time your phone calls. Also, make a to-do list. Like I said, we talked about a little bit. Have those benchmarks and those check marks in place. Okay, remember that. Get a good night's rest. I don't have to repeat that. I think I've, since I've done a whole segment on that, I don't know to beat that dead horse, but I will repeat it again because it is so important. Get a good night's rest. That's super important to, your sleep debt and your sleep deprivation. Because lack of rest equals lack of focus, and lack of focus equals lack of sales or scalability in the company or wherever the case may be. So make sure you get a good night's rest, Startup Nation. Also, and this is something I do all the time, trust me, let's say you got a networking event, right? And I mentioned this in becoming a networking guru. Let's say you got a networking event and they got food. Don't eat dinner. Just eat dinner at the networking event. Even if they got like finger foods. Look, I'm not saying be the greedy monster. But what I am saying is that, like, get your feel, like, make that dinner. But at the same time, do your networking, get your business cards in order, make some connections, build some relationships, reestablish some relationships, because you're probably going to run into people that, you already know at the networking event. But make those social events part of your meals, because if you're doing that, now you're killing two birds with one stone. You're not, making a meal and then going to a social event network. Or, like I say all the time, look, if you ain't got no money, just go to a networking event. Just go to a networking event. There's a networking event 9 times out of 10 in your town, at least once a day, that has some type of food element to it. And you don't have to pay nothing, because now granted, what you're spending is your time listening to a sales pitch. But, you can just say no and keep the food and keep on moving. Okay. I'm not saying be a jerk of a guest, but what I am saying is that, you can say no to a sales pitch. And they're just happy that people are there because they're trying to fill a room anyway. So you actually are benefiting them, even if you say no to the sales pitch. Another thing, Startup Nation, choose your companions carefully and wisely. Some people are going to talk your head off. Some people are not engaged in the life that you are as an entrepreneur. And the thing is, other entrepreneurs understand that your time is precious. Your time is important, because time is one of those things that, like, even if you do have 1,000 seconds in a day, there ain't no rollover seconds. This ain't AT&T or Verizon. There ain't nothing rolling over. Once those seconds are gone, they are gone. So you need to be mindful that when you establish relationships and new friendships and professional relationships, that you're around people who understand that, or at least around enough people who understand that, because they will steal your time. They will be time suckers if they don't. And a lot of times, unfortunately, and I know it's going to sound bad, a lot of times our friends and family are time suckers, because they don't understand that, your time is important. They think that just because you control your own hours and you control your own schedule, that you can do whatever the hell you want. And that's simply not true, because you still have to work. Even though my work schedule doesn't look like yours, and true enough, I can stay in the office at 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. But, at the same time, I still have work to do, because if I stop working, this company doesn't move forward. Now, unless your company is large enough, you can do that. But for many of you out there on Startup Nation, if you stop working, your company doesn't move forward. And that's a big no-no. And lastly, Startup Nation, give yourself 30 minutes dedicated each day. Look, once again, you can give that time to yourself. You can give that time to family, give that time to your spouse, or wherever the case may be. But 30 minutes, maybe even an hour, depending on your work schedule. Give yourself some time to yourself each day to decompress, to unwind. No work, no returning emails, no any of that. You can catch a 30-minute show on your favorite, television program, or watch 30 minutes of a game, or play video games for 30 minutes. Whatever you want to do for that 30 minutes, do that. Because like I said, sometimes you need in-game timeouts. Sometimes you got to call that, if you watch basketball, it's the NBA playoffs, forgive me. So I'm kind of in basketball mode. So you give yourself that 20-second timeout motion, but remember that, you got to decompress within the day, because look, this life can get stressful. This life can get kind of hard and tedious. And every once in a while, you need an in-game reset. And that's okay. Sometimes you can't wait to take, to go to sleep at night and then get your rest in. Sometimes you got to take that in-game. Okay. So those are some of the ways that you can save some of your time, because the thing is, if you take that 30 minutes and you use it wisely and decompress, that you're not stressed out over the other time. And so when you're stressed out in the time you should be working and you're not focused on the work, you're actually wasting time at that moment, but just because you didn't take the 30 minutes to decompress. So take the 30 minutes to decompress, so you won't be wasting time being stressed when it actually is time to work. And lastly, Startup Nation, before we cut out for today, look, you know how you get those customers, or potential customers, air quotes, and they have like 1,000,001 questions, but they don't want to buy nothing. And after a while, you want to ask all the questions, but after a while, you need to move this right along approach. I'm going to give you some scenarios to kind of prepare for those type of things, because like I said, those are some of those time suckers. Unfortunately, I know calling a customer a time sucker or a potential customer a time sucker is bad, but I'm sorry, it's just the truth. Sometimes they will steal some of your time. So let's see if we can kind of, set some ground rules so we can kind of manage that part of reclaiming our time a little bit. The first thing you want to do when you have like a meeting or even a sales call, wherever the case may be, is to come prepared. Come prepared with, some talking points, some conversation points. So that way the tone is already set, right? Because the thing is, if you set the rules ahead of time and you set that expectation ahead of time, you box that person in and not to just go off on a wild tangent, right? It's like a fence, right? You come prepared and you set those boundaries or whatever the case may be. It's like a fence. And so that customer isn't allowed to go outside of that fence with like this random question and this random comment and this, random story or wherever the case may be. So when you come prepared and you set those boundaries, okay, that allows for the customer to stay within that box, to stay within that fence and not go on some wild, boisterous tangent that you really don't have time to hear. Another thing, Startup Nation, trust your gut. If you feel like, based on that initial conversation before you have the actual meeting, that, this customer may not be ready to buy or ready to pay or whatever the case may be, go with that. Because 9 times out of 10, you're probably right. There's usually some type of red flag that'll let you know that this customer isn't probably as serious as you may think. One of those red flags may be the fact that they keep pushing the meeting date back and back and back. They may not be ready. And when you do get them on the phone, they're kind of all over the place. Another red flag to look for is when they ask, if they constantly ask, are there special discounts? Are there special deals or specials, or whatever the case may be you can do? That's because, 9 times out of 10, that customer doesn't want to really pay the full price. Now, in this scenario, you can go one or two ways. You can, just make sure you set the expectation ahead of time. We talked about that. You can also say the price is the price. There's a tactful way to do that. But, let's not do that too much, because the thing is, like, look, the price is the price. I get that. And you want to be paid for your time. However, every once in a while, you may want to consider some type of special discount or special deal. Not too much, because you got to remember, just because it's costing that person a few minutes of their time to pay for that thing, it may have cost you 6 weeks of your time to create that product. And you should be compensated for such. Okay. So be mindful of that. Maybe give them a special discount, maybe not. Maybe you want to look, the price is the price. This is what it is. Or you could say, look, this is the price. This is what you'll get. Now, if you want to pay a lower price, that's fine. But these are some of the things I'm going to take away. Okay. So you take away some of that value when you're talking about, somebody who maybe not want to, pay the original price, but go with your gut. You can kind of tell who a potential buyer or a motivated buyer or who probably isn't. Be mindful of that. Also, Startup Nation, make sure you clarify the responsibilities on each end. Clarify the responsibilities on your end and clarify the responsibilities on their end, because when you put those responsibilities on your customer and on yourself, that's one of those things that, once again, it sets the clear priority and it sets the clear expectation. If the customer understands that it is their job to not only pay for your product or service on hand, but it's also for them to, make sure they do these instructions the right way, or they prepare this way in order to get the maximum out of their product or service. That's also putting their expectation on them as well. So they're a little bit more invested, and you can tell that they're not going to take up too much of your time, because if they're motivated, they're not going to take up a lot of your time. They're really going to work with you to try to get this transaction done as fast as possible, because they need what exactly you're offering. Another thing, Startup Nation, is that, look, if they're always, they ask you a question and you address that question with the issue, and they bring up another question. So what if this, and what if that, and what if this, and what if that? Like, that's one of those trust your gut issues as well. And 9 times out of 10, this isn't the right customer for your company or your product or service. And in a situation like that, because by this time the meeting is really dragging on and you're kind of tired of it, you got to move on to other stuff. At this time, like, look, Mr. Customer, I appreciate you thinking about our product or service. for whatever it is that you need it for. I'll leave you with some literature. I do have, no, you probably don't want to say you do have other customers or clients or whatever, but you do want to let them know, like, look, I've answered all your questions. There's not really anything else I can do for you at this time. I'll give you this literature. Why don't you think about it? And then we'll move forward. And so it's one of those things where, after a while, sometimes with certain people, you just got to cut it off. There's been plenty of times where I'll have a customer or a client that we're working with, and they have all those millions of questions or whatever. And I'll just like, look, I got a hard 10:30. I got to be out of here. So, here's the literature. Here's my card. If you have any other questions, let me know. Send me an email, wherever the case may be. And so that's one of those things that kind of cut it off as well. When you're having a customer that's kind of dragging on a meeting, they just want to just really suck up a lot of your time. And the thing is, Startup Nation, they don't mean any harm. I really think they do mean well. It's just one of those things where they don't speak the language of entrepreneurship, and so they don't really understand how important and precious your time is. Because like I said, time you can't get back. But there are tactful ways to really cut off a meeting when it's really dragging like that. So here's my final take. To me, in my opinion, time is the most precious asset you have as an entrepreneur and as a human being, because you can't get that back. And you're going to have a lot of variables to where, unfortunately, life happens, and they're going to consume time, and they're going to consume resources that, unfortunately, you can't get back. But when you think about, that sleep part, like I said, it's not reclaiming time in the present, it's reclaiming your time on the back end of your life. So that way you have a little bit more, hours to your life. It's been studies shown that people who didn't get enough sleep through the course of their life lost like 1.5 to 2 years off of their life just because not getting enough sleep. And then also, when you think about the benefits of time management, why it's important to do that strategic planning, that can really be the X factor to you beating your competition, because maybe your focus is on par, and maybe your execution is on par because you got that good night's rest and your competition was working on 4 hours rest. You just never know. And so saving your time, and ways to save your time is extremely important. If you want to be radical and do something that we did, we had 2 cars, we got rid of 1 car. We decided that we didn't need, 2 cars. And so we use Uber to do what we need to do. Not only does that save us money for not having a car, that also saves us time because we can do work while we're driving to our destination, responding to emails, sending out emails, creating a custom invoice so we can get paid on time, paying an invoice that we need to pay in order to get a service so that we can scale our company. And so all of these things are just super important when we're thinking about managing our time and saving our time and treating our time as a precious commodity. And I believe that if you remember all these things and do some of the tactics that we talked about in this episode, you will be able to reclaim your time. So that's going to do it for this episode of The Startup Life. I hope you really got value out of this episode. Look, time is precious, people. Startup Nation, time is precious. It's one of those things where you can't get it back. You can't roll over the time. There are no rollover minutes. They're just not. But it's one of those things where if you value your time, you will force other people to value your time as well. If you want to let us know what you think about the show, have an idea for a show topic, or would like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a new way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is here in the show notes. To subscribe to the show, as it can now be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and SoundCloud. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the Startup Life.